Sure thing. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me. Just to quickly introduce myself, I'm a reporter. I've been writing a newsletter called Weed Week for 9 years now, covering legalization. And so this story came about, and it was co-written with me and the great LA Times reporter Paige St. John, because a couple of years ago, or I guess about a year and a half ago, I published a story. Everybody knows that so much of the market is so much product is sold because it's stronger and because it costs less money. And there's a phenomenon of lab shopping in many states where where brands can essentially choose the lab that is going to give them their.
By the way, for folks that just coming in the chat, this is Alex Halperin, founder of Weed Week. He collaborated with the LA Times and wrote this article. He did the investigation. So just for folks who are aware, we're gonna skim through this, and let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Though, would love to make sure you guys follow us on all the social medias too. Check the links down below. Make sure you subscribe, hit the like button. Hit the like button, guys, please. All right.
Their official results, and as a result of this, there's widely acknowledged to be widespread potency inflation on product labels throughout.
So this is what we just talked about, right?
Many legal market states, and this has provoked legal challenges in several states, litigation, and it's just it hasn't been a particularly good look for weed connoisseurs. Talk about how it's not really about the potency, it's about the terpenes and such, but customers haven't quite caught up with them apparently, and they want the potent weed. So this was pissing off some labs in California because they felt that they were doing honest assessments of potency, and as a result they were losing business to labs that they felt were dishonest. And the problem, and they alerted the DCC about this, and which is the California Department of Cannabis Control, and the DCC didn't do anything. And they also alerted the DCC that they had found some pesticides that are not allowed by the state of California to be in weed. And again, the DCC didn't do anything. So as a result, some lab executives published an article in Cannabis Industry Journal, sort of explaining the issue, and that they had found widespread potency inflation, and even some pesticides, and that the DCC hadn't done anything about it, and it was undermining good actors in the market.
Mm-hmm. And real quick with that, and I learned through this, this whole article coming out. So the DCC has $135 million that they're supposed to use to enforce stuff like this, correct? I just want to.
I'm not sure of their budget. Actually, is that
something? I think it's something like that. If I was, yeah.
Okay. The DCC does have an enforcement role, but the enforcement role that has been emphasized, that it puts out press releases about, are busting illegal, unlicensed operations. And it's these are pretty big busts. They can be like $50 million, $100 million, but compared to the size of the illegal market, it's not that much.
Okay, sorry to derail you there. My bad.
Yeah, no problem at all. So I wrote a story in 2022 where I bought some pre-rolls off shelves and got them tested at some labs, and they came back that all 7 of the 7 brands we tested had significant potency inflation. So roughly from about 20% to one blunt that was like 500% potency inflation, which was kind of amazing. It was 8%, and the label said more than 50%. And this story I did led to some litigation. I'm not quite sure where that litigation stands, actually. I should probably check back on that. But similar things have happened in other states. But the thing, with potency inflation, it's not really, consumers, I guess, are being misled, but it's not a problem, really. It's not gonna
hurting
hurt
people. Yeah.
to have less THC in their weed than they thought it would. It's not to their product. That's much more important and something. But of course, if dangerous pesticides are getting in to their product, that's much more important and something the public has a right to know about. And so I wanted to test products for these pesticides, and I had been talking to the LA Times about a story, and Paige St. John, who had been covering the weed industry for a while as well, she out of Northern California, and she's been looking at some of the illegal spreads in remote places like Siskiyou County and stuff like that. And she had encountered dangerous pesticides, which were being used in the illegal market by illegal grows, but some of which were finding their way into the licensed supply.
And stick around, folks, because you might have like I said, there's no one on the internet right now that's going to be giving you more information, because not only are we going to be talking about the LA Times article, but we're talking about the aftermath of it. We're going to be talking about the inner workings of a lot of this stuff, the inside baseball. Let's just say that, folks. So stick around. I just need to get through this part for context so people understand, everything. And I'll skip through a little bit of this a little quicker, but trust me, you don't want to stick around. It's pretty fucking interesting.
And she wrote a separate story about this, which came out with ours about this particular issue. Some of these pesticides are from China. They're banned in the United States and very dangerous. And even state workers who were dealing with these grows were cautioned not to, that they may have to be careful or get their blood tested and things like that.
Other interesting thing that we see with China, right? China has become the importer of selling either other Chinese nationals that come into the States to grow or to sell to the cartels, the precursors, or just the pesticides, probably the precursors, because some of these pesticides are banned by I believe, in most, some of these, I don't know actually the United States, but it's interesting. You're starting to see, like I made a post on my Instagram, actually, shout out to the homie, the highest critic. Just check it, by the way, make sure you're following me on Instagram, lmc.media. But, there's some really, it's really interesting what's going on. It looks like right now China has really taken over large swaths of the illicit, Chinese nationals more so. And like I said, I've done multiple videos on it. I grew up working with the Chinese triad, literally. I literally had no idea, and I was working with them. And, I saw somebody comment, bring back the platinum or the Bubba. That is another great, a great example of these are the PGR heavy metal, heavy, but like someone commented earlier, that's the 90s, 2000s. I mean, now we're getting into there's exponential amount of new chemicals, new pesticides that are, being created. And I mean, we don't really know the effect fully on, humans long term, but I mean, it can't be good, right? Then again, everything kind of, a lot of ways, like plastic bottles, right? I mean, the microplastics are going to get us anyway. Not to go on a tangent there, but it's interesting, right? So there was another article that was done by the woman at the LA Times who did this, wrote this article with Alex here. And she talked about how, there's a bunch of these pesticides that are being, brought in from China that are really bad. I mean, it's like a new era of new generation pesticides, things that are pretty gnarly. Anyway, I'll let him get into that.
Some of the names of these toxins or these fertilizers or pesticides coming from China off the top of your head? It's okay if not.
I don't want to get them wrong off the top of my head, but okay. I would point you to Paige's story. So I had been talking to the LA Times about a story, and she's on staff at the LA Times, and an editor sort of united us, and we got to talking. And so we did do tests. We did tests of 40 vape, mainly vapes, that all of which we bought at licensed stores, and we did the test as blindly as we could at 2 labs to ensure that the results matched. And what we found is a lot to be concerned about. So, but before I go any further, I'll say, so one of the issues with pesticides is that the EPA, because cannabis is federally illegal, the EPA hasn't been addressing the issue of pesticides in cannabis. So as a result, each state has to decide for itself which pesticides and how much of them is safe to be used in cannabis. And that's totally absurd, but there's a lot about cannabis that's absurd. It's the same way that it's absurd that each state has to decide for itself which medical conditions can be allowed for.
Yeah, or like which regulatory system, like metric or this or that, for all they do. That's another real quick too. I just want to like ask this question before we move into the main kind of course of this interview.
Sure.
I just remembered. So I saw that article that I can't remember her name. Sorry, it was what's the reporter's name?
Paige St. John.
Okay.
Okay, listen here, guys. This is one thing in the interview that I was a little confused about. It was a little. You'll get what I'm saying. This is kind of weird.
Paige St. John, excuse me. So she's talking about China's involvement. Isn't the LA Times owned by a Chinese group? And I'm just curious. Like, and I know that's nothing to do with that. It's like a side. They recently sold that. I'm pretty sure LA Times was bought by a Chinese group, or they sold recently to like their group, which is interesting.
No, the LA Times is owned by a doctor who I believe is of Asian extraction. I'm not sure what country he's from, who made a lot of money. Right. So no, it's not.
No. Okay.
Up to my knowledge.
Okay, this is why I was confused just on this front, and this is kind of a minor thing, but I wanted to do this just so we can fact check ourselves here. So Sun Xiong founded and sold 2 biotech companies together worth nearly $8 billion and owns stake in the Los Angeles Lakers. Since taking over the LA Times, he's invested hundreds of millions of dollars in the company. Now, is Patrick Sun Xiong Chinese? Sun Xiong was born in Port Elizabeth, Union of South Africa, modern-day South Africa, to Chinese immigrant parents who fled from China during the Japanese occupation of World War II, Guangdong province. So anyway, so he owns it. His group owns it. So it's not. He is from Chinese descent, but he's not from China. Not to say, like, I'm just kind of curious. there. I just want to make sure we get our facts right here. Let's get back to this.
For some reason, I heard that. Just off the top of my head, I just remembered that randomly. So I just wanted to ask that random question. Besides the point, though, so you got.
So nobody quite knows the dangers of these products in the pesticides, but also getting them on their skin and stuff like that. There's really no research into the effect of those, the dangers of these products. There are people, it's not like the vape crisis of a couple of years ago where people took a hit and then got gravely ill or even died. This is, the concern is more similar to cigarettes, which are widely acknowledged to be incredibly dangerous, but they take a while to.
Shout out to all the living soil growers, by the way. We're actually, some of the home grow content that we're doing right now. We started out with living soil. We're going to continue to do living soil, but yeah, shout out to all the living soil cultivators.
Kill you. But the research isn't done. So while we know quite a bit about what cigarettes do, we don't really know about the problem of inhaling vapes contaminated with these chemicals.
Absolutely. I mean, it's probably going to be a huge problem. Let's be real. I mean, who knows the untold cancers, diseases that are going to be developed over the next 20, 30 years from this potentially. So, I mean, it's obviously a serious issue. It's kind of like we're seeing a lot of like the spray, synthetic terpenes that are being sprayed onto now cannabis, which is really scary. I mean, there's a ton of stuff right now in the cannabis space that it seems like right now we have, because of the way that legalization was set up and because of just, a lot of different reasons, the market site, like, because there's, I guess it's because these illegal.
Okay, I see CLTV, shout out to Rob, thinks the tests were rigged. What do you mean tests? Which ones? The ones that were done by the LA Times, or which ones? Confirm for me, if you could, brand new grower.
Legal markets were formed. The capitalism is way farther ahead than the regulations and the agencies that are, because what today, the new up and coming kind of trends and problems in cannabis, the regulatory bodies are like probably 2-3 years behind, if not more. Like, they don't even know what we're talking about when we talk about like the synthetic terpenes. Like, that's something that we're probably going to talk, and it's good. I'm really glad that this piece came out that you did, because I think it's really pushing them to, hopefully it pushes them to actually look at this stuff and start to really, understand that, this could be really, really, really.
Where the illegal market is entrenched, where getting things done in California is really hard. And the DC responded to illegal market is entrenched, where getting things done in California is really hard. And the DCC, it doesn't write the laws. It doesn't have that many levers to really shift the dynamics of the market. But
DCC are some clowns, by the way. I'm just going to say that.
The industry is fed up with them nonetheless. The agency is led by Nicole Elliott.
Clown. She's a clown.
They're and let me go a little bit more into some of those issues. So essentially what we found is happening is that basically there's a huge demand for cheap distillate oil right now for vapes, and we found that there are brokers who are arranging the sale of sort of old.
Okay, we're gonna get to this, guys. Make sure to stick around. So Rob from CLTV Pigeons 420. Shout out to them, to the homies. So they think that the LA Times story is fake. Oh, they're not. It's fake. They're the biggest douchebags. I don't think so. They're not douchebags, but I think for them to say it's fake, like I said, we're gonna answer that here, okay? Because I specifically asked him about all of these things, whether this is a hit job or whether this is, you'll see.
And sort of middle and lower shelf weed to be extracted into distillate, and some of them are willing to buy contaminated weed because it sells because it's a lot cheaper, so their margins will be a lot better, and the farmers are just happy to sell it for anything because it's contaminated. So what's happening is that this biomass is getting squeezed into distillate, which then gets dosed out to various brands, which are ostensibly competing against each other. And then basically they have to send it to labs, samples of the batches to labs to get approval, to get their certificate of analysis that it's safe by California standards and get onto shelves. And the question is whether the labs that are clearing these products or not looking for some products that they don't have to be. So there are different issues. There are products they have to be looking for and products they don't have to be. So with the products they do have to, with the pesticides they do have to look for, chlorphenapyr was one that we found in quite a few doses. And this is a pesticide. Again, I'm not a huge expert on pesticide, but this is a pesticide known to have an incredibly long staying power in physical facilities. So even if it was being used in an illegal grow some time back, and that's been converted into a legal grow, and the legal grow still isn't using it, it lives on in the drywall and in the construction and can still contaminate product. And that's a problem because the DCC doesn't allow any amount of this product in Canada.
So does that make sense, guys? Does that make sense? I want to be very clear, just kind of really get that, make sure that everyone gets that. So there's this product, right? There's, however you make distillate, right? You take a bunch of, trim, a bunch of biomass, right? And that biomass typically, can be grown in certain soil or whatever it may be. That is what gets contaminated initially, right? And then that gets taken, turned into shitty, cheap distillate, right? Hot dog water, as folks call it. And the labs then, they have to get them COAs, right? Certificate of Analysis. And that's where people are thinking, oh, well. So if you get, I'm pretty sure in California, let's say if something pops for getting dirty, like something pops for pesticides, right? That entire crop, I'm pretty sure you have to burn or get rid of. I'm pretty sure. But I just want people to understand, just to clarify. So does that make sense to folks? Let me know. Let me know in the chat if that doesn't make sense or if it does. Or anyway.
And what does that pesticide potentially lead to? I'm assuming carcinogenic.
Jesus Christ, dude. I was in Portland here. Carcinogenic. There we go.
Carcinogen. I'm sorry.
I couldn't even say it this time, bro. At that time. Jesus Christ. Come on, Luke.
To make sure I get it right, I'm going to quote our story.
Yeah, wow.
So
that's
causing increased death of offspring. Symptoms include nausea, vomiting, headache. Okay, so chlorphenapyr is an insecticide that's not permitted on any food products. No amount is allowed in California cannabis. Exposure symptoms include nausea, vomiting, headache, difficulty breathing, wheezing, chest tightness, and short-term memory loss. Combustion releases hydrogen, cyanide, and other toxic gases. In rats, it concentrated in breast milk, causing increased death of offspring.
That's not good.
No,
Not good at
not
all.
good.
Yeah, wow.
So-
That's just one of many, right? I mean, there's many other ones.
And that, I mean, that's one of dozens of chemicals we found. So the question is, so all of the manufacturers that we spoke to, whose products we found, they all blame the labs, saying like the labs are getting it wrong. We're paying the labs, but there's a certain irony, or they are choosing which labs to use, and there's a question of whether they were choosing the labs because they knew that the labs would pass them, or not, because the results that we found were strikingly different from the results on the official California certificate of analysis. And sorry, please continue.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. My bad.
So the question is, I mean, there are a lot of questions, but how do you deal with this? And I mean,
it seems like for a while now, I mean, the testing programs around the country in every single state is kind of a joke. I mean, there's no, like, I would say one of the few things that I think that should, our different states, our different markets it's like the laboratories of democracy, as they call it, right? The trying out different systems. I would say though, like one of the few systems that I think should be across the board pretty, regulated, like hope, maybe, I don't know, maybe on a federal level. I mean, I think so. Honestly, have these standard